We are both wearing red. All right, but you're gonna have to cut the fan off though when we start, just because it's gonna be loud in the background. So wait a minute, wait. Let me transition first. All right, we're back. Contribute appreciation. We're This is after a long term of surgery.
Little
And
hiatus.
yes, I haven't necessarily been feeling all that well, and it's been a combination of issues. The surgery was just one of many, but nevertheless, I'm feeling up to doing this show. I don't know if I'm going to have another one because honestly, it doesn't seem like it is working the way it is supposed to work. I'm talking about fistula. I could talk about it more.
You don't know if you're going to have another surgery.
Correct.
Okay.
So we could talk about it after the break, but I am glad to be back. Contributor appreciation special. So, and day after birthday special. Even at that, we considered having a little birthday, but I thought I wanted my own birthday. So, welcome to the soapbox. My name is Jamal Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, please like, share, and subscribe. You can always support this content through PayPal or Patreon. I like to say this content is brought to you by you, and I appreciate you the opportunity for allowing me to do so. I am joined by my lovely wife, Mrs. Thomas, who's going to help me do the news for the day. I think it's always a treat when she's here for the Contributor Appreciation Specials, and so I want to thank her for being here. Let me get this out of her way.
I'm just like a prop. Can we share this mic?
Mm-hmm. It is a share. So I am going to let her give her spiel. But basically what took place, I get treatments. I'm on hemodialysis. I've done CAPD, I've done CCPD, I've done hemo, I've gotten to the point of self-cannulation, I've done it all. I've traveled around the world, going from facility to facility, sticking myself all along the way, and basically controlling my own treatment thing without necessarily any fear that there's any issue there, as long as I'm doing most of the treatments. And basically many of the places are better than the U.S., if I'm being honest. I mean, everywhere I went, there was a doctor on staff constantly. In the United States, you see a doctor maybe once or twice a month, twice if you're lucky. But the fistula that I've had for 20-something years stopped working. And so it's one of those things where this is the thing that I use to get access, meaning where they stick in order to get blood through the machine.
So that was about a month ago.
Right, that was about a month ago. So you don't have chances to wait, meaning it has to be something done immediately because you need some way to clean your blood. Otherwise, you're going to degrade pretty quickly. When I was traveling, I was able to go maybe 9 days at the most, and that's pushing it under the best of situations, right? And I don't know why I was even to make it those days. I think it might have been the environment. It was hotter or something where you're sweating more. Because you're sweating more, it levels up. Whatever the reasons, 9 days is pushing it. But you can't really do that under normal circumstances, nor should you do that under normal circumstances. The trip is something you're willing to sacrifice in order to get that. Meaning, I'm willing to go to this place and stay here and get married, etc., etc., and the pain that I'm going to experience matters less than the marriage and the experience. Well, if you are at home, there's no justification for that, right? So you have to get it done pretty much immediately. And so I got it done immediately. They put in a tube, my jugular, this grotesque item. And the surgeon went in and he had to create a new fistula because the old one at that point had crapped out. That's going to suck, right? Because ultimately what that means is it's hard for people to realize it, but you take a needle the size of an ink pen and you're jamming it in your arm, 2 of them. And after a while of doing it, for let's say like 10 years or whatever, you get scar tissue. And the scar tissue makes that skin really light over top of this kind of blood thing. And so it's easy to puncture and the pain kind of levels off a little bit when you're doing it that way. When you have to do new skin, which is basically what he did because it's a new fistula, it is like hot, searing, it's like searing hot pain. It's hard to explain. Like when you get an IV needle, that that's weird to me because in my head I know this is a needle going into you and it needs to hurt. And so whether it hurts or not, it hurts. Like I have a cute attention to it where she's like, it hurts. I say, no, it doesn't hurt. And she's like, why are you tensing up? Because I know it's going to hurt. It's that. So with the old one, if you're controlling it, you're plopping it in, bam, it's done. With this new one, you plop it in and there's a searing fire that goes along with it. It hurts. And so it's like you're aware of that. And even on top of that, it doesn't work. And like he's like, yeah, we're going to have to go in and fix that. It's like, fuck. All right. And so instead of it being this kind of nice, clean, thing, it becomes, okay, you have to use your fistula longer. That means you have to be in treatments longer. It's a lot of stuff. So hopefully, once the swelling goes down, it just works the way we expect it to. And maybe it takes a while, but hopefully it works the way we expect it to. So that's where we are. But in the meantime, I thought I was up to doing contributor appreciation. And so I thought we'd do it. Not to mention, we thought we were going to do it on the day of my birthday. But I thought, no, I kind of want my day off. And my loving wife, yesterday, gave me the best birthday gift ever. There is ever, I don't know about ever, but it's as far back as I can remember. It's one thing for somebody to give you something, they spend money on it. And I always say, it's not the money, it's not the money. It's what the person wants. If there is nothing that you can really buy me that I want per se, then the only thing you can really give me is something else that goes beyond the cash. And something I would even pay for that I don't think I would pay for because I don't want the person to be miserable in doing it. I care more about the person not being miserable. And to me, if you pay for it, it gets...
Oh my gosh, bring it home.
So she played Beyond Earth Civilization. Now, I don't know if you know this is one of those games where it's move by move, strategic.
It's turn-based.
Turn-based, right. And it allows you to basically build a civilization. And as you build a civilization, you have other people who are on that planet who are also building civilizations. Now, you don't have to be a warmonger. You don't have to be a guy who does cash. You could be egalitarian. You could be a harmonious thing. You have all sorts of ways where you could play that game. And we ended up, it's funny, she controlled the seas, I controlled the land. And we didn't attack one another. Under normal circumstances, oftentimes it's all bets are off. But she got into some trouble, and they came after me, and they came after the wrong person. I was the one that knocked. That's where we were. And I decimated the population. When I decimated the population, they stopped declaring war on her. She's like, they stopped coming after me because I just murdered the entire army. That's what happened. So she played for like 4 hours. And so I was joyous.
That's funny because Michael Williams, one of the questions that he asked, we've been here for how many minutes? And this is the first time I'm getting to talk. Michael Williams said...
I left you a space for you. You were supposed to introduce... You didn't
when
say
was
anything.
That space?
In the beginning of the opening.
When? We're going to go back to that and
yes.
Look for that millisecond of half of a breath.
It's like 30 seconds.
Okay.
You're never supposed to have dead air.
Michael Williams said Michael Williams wanted to know what was your best birthday gift that you got or the best thing that you did. Do you think that was it? Our experience playing Civ together? Yeah. Okay.
There's no way to buy that.
Okay.
Because I can't. If I pay somebody, it fucks it up.
I do know that you tend to appreciate us spending time together. And you like to look for things that we can do together. So I appreciate that. Okay, so I'm going to do my spiel, which is basically the only reason that I'm here. My name is Aisha, if you're new, Mrs. Thomas, aka Mrs. Progressive Soapbox. I pop in. It used to be once a week for these shows. We like to do a show where we say thank you for everybody who contributes to the channel. And I'm digging in here because there are a couple people who are like, what the hell is Jamal talking about? When we start these, usually we just kind of talk shit for a couple minutes, let people join the show. And these are very casual. And these are for the audience. We post a post on the Patreon platform, or we post a post on the Patreon platform and asked patrons to give their topic suggestions for this show. And that was another reason why we didn't do this yesterday, was because we wanted time for people to give their topic suggestions. So yesterday I posted and say, hey, we're going to be on at 11. What do you guys want to talk about? And so A couple people did pop on and say, this is what we want to hear. But usually this was a weekly thing that we did. Like he said, he's been a little under the weather with all of the kidney stuff going on. And so we haven't been here for about a month. He felt up to it. I'm actually off because I took off because, like he's mentioned, this is his birthday weekend. So I've been off since Friday. And so this was a good time. And so we are here to say thank you for everyone who is here and supports the channel. If you're not subscribed, what are you waiting for? Please subscribe. If you're enjoying the content, make sure that you give the video a thumbs up. If you don't like it, feel free to give it a thumbs down. But whatever you're doing, do it honestly. If you are not familiar with what the Patreon platform is, it is a platform that lets you support the content creator. If you're new here, you may not be aware. Sometimes YouTube strips a channel. Sometimes they take it down. Jamal's been taken off of YouTube as recently as 2 months ago.
Yeah.
And he loses his revenue stream. And so Patreon allows you to make sure that the content creator can still produce content. And you commit to a monetary amount, $1, $5, whatever, and every dollar does help. And so that is where we give our posts to ask for content recommendations for this contributor appreciation special. So if you are a patron, make sure that you're logging on there to submit your topic suggestions. Also, I am not surfing the web. I'm actually looking at your chats during today's show. So I am looking for information that you are sending. Uh-oh, I lost connection. I'm checking for the conversations to make sure that we are covering what you guys are talking about in the chat. You are always welcome to send a super chat to make sure that it is covered here. But yeah, if you're enjoying the content, give it a thumbs up. Consider being a patron. Make sure that you're subscribed if you're enjoying what Jamal puts out. You're not going to see me very often. Hopefully, once we get back to standard,
some normality,
everything, then yeah, I'll be here back once a week. But yeah.
So I want to start off. Well, wait. What's one of the questions before I go?
Okay, so happy birth anniversary. Also,
thank you.
Yesterday was Jamal's birthday. My birthday was August 2nd, and our wedding anniversary was August 2nd as well, because we did get married on my birthday. Just some other fun facts. So pulling a question off of the Patreon platform, Jennifer McClinton says, happy birthday. Kaylon says, happy birthday. I'm not going to mispronounce this name, but someone with the initials AA also says, happy birthday, and said, it would be great to hear more about the events unfolding in Belarus.
So the last...
Do you have an update on that?
Yeah, so the last I heard about Belarus had to do with...
Avrarov.
What do you mean?
The name is Avrarov.
No, Lushenko is the
No, I'm talking about this person's name that asked the question.
They call him the last dictator of Europe, right? But here's the catch. He is close with Putin. The country, for the most part, is aligned with Russia. And there is a large number of people who are very angry at him because they say he stole the election. Belarus, right.
Okay.
Now, the thing is, the election ended up with like 80% support, some obscene number, and people were like, what the fuck, there's no way. And so they was like, you stole that election, you stole the election. So they have these massive crowds that are marching for him to get out of office. He doesn't want to go anywhere. And he has started to cozy back up with Vladimir Putin. You're like, yeah. Because if you're in his position, you can kind of play one side against the other. You're sitting in this kind of middle point between the EU and Russia. The country, not like the Ukraine, doesn't have this hatred of Russia in the same way that some of the other countries would. So the notion of trying to have like a revolution there becomes somewhat problematic because they're explicitly pointed against him, not against the Russian powers, in my understanding anyway. And so he started to cozy back up with Vladimir Putin. They've started putting out joint statements. Now the catch is, this country is on the border of Russia. If this country falls, and if you have somebody who takes it that is, let's say, not loving of Russia, well, you have a problem. Because now you have this country that is, again, like a NATO country-esque on Russia's border, which means we were willing to go to nuclear war to prevent Russia from getting missiles on our borders, or the Soviet Union. But we are perfectly okay with moving up to their borders and even gobbling up those countries, getting that much closer to their borders. Like, for example, why do you think they invaded the Ukraine? It was on the border. And so they're like, yeah, we're going to, put little green men in some of these situations. Stop that. Because we need to peel that off. We can't do that. We can't allow that.
Recent?
No, well, that's everything that's recently been happening. There's been protests, larger marches, and they've been putting out statements going from the standpoint of, we're joint, we're aligned, et cetera, et cetera. He even made the point of saying the military services are going to help with the security. Now, the catch becomes, how much pressure does it take before something has to unfold? And beyond how much pressure does the European Union and the U.S. get involved, either overt or invert, undercover, meaning clandestine. Meaning because people are saying color revolution, as if they're going to do to the Ukraine, like they did to Ukraine there. Come up with some notion of trying to break the government, even if it's the violent means. And of course, the U.S., who hates protesters here,
right?
Bravo! Burn that police station. That type of stuff. And so, I don't know. I mean, right now, they don't seem violent. They seem rather peaceful. And it doesn't seem like they're actively engaged in any kind of like violence or whatever. But it depends on how loud the masses feel they need to be. Because if the Constitution says you have free speech and you can protest, great. And they come out and say, all right, your protesting must stop at 3 p.m. You need to be in your homes at 3 p.m. But you can protest all you want, as long as it's peaceful, at 3 p.m. And they let you do that. They let you do that for weeks, for months. You can do it all year. How do you even get home under those circumstances?
Yeah.
They've criminalized your ability to even get home.
And then what happens? What are the penalties after 3 p.m.?
The moment that they see you and they don't like you, they think you're doing something. Get the fuck in the car. Told you you're supposed to be in the house at 3 p.m. And then they would say, we need you to be in the house at 3 p.m. We've given you the space to do so. Now, it's ludicrous, right? Because just because they've given you the space to do it, they've undermined any level of ability to do so. Meaning, the idea of enshrined in the First Amendment to some degree forces you to break the law. I hope you understand what the protests are. What protests basically are not what they tell you it is. Protest is putting your body up against a state that is hostile, knowing that that state is going to criminalize your ability to be out there to protest in the first place. Meaning, how much blood can I give for what I want to accomplish in the world? That's true in civil rights. That's true in progressive uprisings. That's true in women's suffrage. That's true. Any way you want to go, that's true. It's not this flowery, we're going to just go out and hold signs and we're going to be joyous. No, you've got it backwards. When you go out there and hold those signs of feeling joyous, the cops are out there to beat the shit out of you. And deep-seated among the people and your elders, they would say exactly what I'm saying. How much blood are you going to give for the cause? Because that's what protests are. It is not this love and light thing. If it's love and light, you're doing something wrong. When it comes up against the arm of the state, that's where the job is being done.
AJC says exactly that is why people saying protests don't work is crap.
Yeah.
He said, looking at Shane.
Right.
Don't do that.
Right. Well, the thing is, I mean,
Jeff says the system is against resistance.
Well, the protest always has a flicker of violence. And that's the catch. Meaning, when those people are out there, that's potential energy mobilized.
Well,
for one
historically,
specific cause.
protests are always, in my mind, I think about a protest, I think I'm putting my body on the line.
Right.
Like, that's always what I think about when I think about a protest. It's like putting your body on the line. Putting my body on the line.
Literally.
So there is some
because when you go, you have no idea what the state is going to do. But here's the catch. Why do you think the state responds that way? Because the state knows in a deep-seated way that the fact that you have, let's say, 100,000 people on the streets, what happens if that becomes kinetic? How do you hold back 100,000 people? And do you end up killing some people in order to hold those people back? Why do you think when what's his name was killed and George Floyd was killed, they allowed them to torch the police station? They told them to pull back. They said, don't Don't engage.
Right.
Get the stuff out of the police station, the bombs, the guns, and everything else, and let them have it. They said it because they knew that if those cops would have did that, you're having a fight where those cops are going to have to kill in order to stop those people from doing what they were doing. And they chose it is better to let the shit burn and not have that confrontation. Let them run free. Basically, we fucked up. We acknowledge it. Don't make this worse by getting into a confrontation where you end up killing some of the protesters. That's going to make it worse. Just let it go. That's just the building at the end of the day. Now, right-wingers hate that, but that's competent on some level where you say, all right, fair enough.
Let them get it out of their
Let
system.
them get it out of their system. We messed up. We killed this guy. Like, we get it. It's not that it's great. It's just your decision space gets so and so constrained because you've let a problem take place. Meaning, you've allowed, for decades, people to be in horrible poverty situations over one family to the next generation to the next. And this takes place in regards to the number of prisons in those communities, the number of inequality or the amount of inequality, the amount of unemployment. I'm telling you, if you had a jobs guarantee, a lot of this stuff goes away. I would wager to you that within 10 years of a federal jobs guarantee, the income inequality, not just income inequality, the gaps in regards to the number of people who are committing crimes, the number of people who are going to jails, that stuff will go down significantly so. Because at that point, why do I need to do crime when I have the rational path with this?
All right, before you move on, Gardner says protests must be combined with other measures like divestment and lawsuits and strikes.
Yes.
Otherwise, they don't accomplish much.
Yes.
Bob Ramirez says so far the protests have helped Trump's numbers quite a bit. Backfired on Biden campaign.
Yes. So that's the other part. Trump has gone up after the Democratic National Conventions. And part of it is, I suspect, is because people look at the protests and said, oh, that was a black person, and they're doing this, and there's lots of African Americans doing
rioting.
this. And Joe Biden can't say anything about it. Now, so Joe Biden comes out and condemns it like he's a robot. The problem with this is that basically Trump can say, I am the law and order president. And basically, he can't go against his base. And he's going to say his base is AOC and all these other people saying to defund the police. That's why he keeps screaming as if Joe Biden is Bernie Sanders. And that's what he's going to say. And to some degree, there's a contradiction in how Democrats can deal with that. Because Joe Biden can say that, and the left can say, yeah, we don't like that. Because there's a heavier section of the left that agrees with the rioting and stuff. Like, if you look at the numbers of people who say, how many of you agree with violence in regards to riot, you get like 40% Democrats saying, yeah, let that shit burn. Let that shit burn. Now, I don't know what percentage of those are blacks, but whatever percentage that is, that percentage feels some kind of way and is alienated. Like, put aside whatever you feel about the violence for the moment. Why do you think people would get to the point where they would say, yes, I feel it is justified that business burned to the goddamn ground. I don't care whether they were directly responsible or not. Fuck them. And in their heads, they would say, whether they internalize it and make the statement or not, my life has been hell. I have been growing up where I am dodging prisons, dodging horrible neighborhoods. My outcomes, if I'm looking at them from the standpoint of a chart, are horrific. The poverty that I grew up in adversely affected my brain chemicals, because that's true, by the way. Your brain matter in your brain changes based on the conditions to which you grow up in, because your barriers, your limitations, all of those things are just being influenced by the way you grow up. I'm sick of it. It was indiscriminate, because it was. I could have been born to anybody. I was born to this particular place. And I'm angry.
Now, bold like a leopard.
Wait. And I'm visiting that on other people. Now, I'm making the point that says, whatever you want to think about any of this other stuff, at the end of the day, you have a society that has perpetuated a system that these people feel alienated from. And for all of the talk of people who are comfortable in the United States, who didn't have to experience that stuff in the ways that those people experienced it, but they're comfortable, but the moment that happens, they're like, oh, I don't like that, make that stop. And the only part they pay attention to is the explosion. They don't pay attention to the fact of the shit that let it going. And by the way, this is Democrat and Republican. When they're arguing comfortable, when they say, oh, that's privilege to not do that. No, what is privilege to sit pretty with the Democratic Party, and I could show you Kenosha, Wisconsin, those conditions, Portland. I could show you any of these places. If there's high poverty or high violence, I would wager that there's high poverty. If there's high drug abuse, I would argue, wait a minute, that there's high poverty. And Democrats and Republicans have sat there and played this dog and pony show while this stuff just perpetuated itself. Where Democrats basically moving to the right, zero accountability in their political space, and allowing this stuff to go on. And they would say, well, Republicans are worse, Republicans are worse. It's like, yeah, but that wouldn't exist if you didn't act the way that you acted either. And so you get to this weird space in our politics where Democrats are like, it's all Trump's fault. And it's like, bullshit. It's not all Trump's fault.
Okay, you pause. It's my turn.
Wait. Just one point. You cannot honestly engage this just as a flat fact and look at from the perspective of the comfortable and say, I don't like that. And those people are wrong for doing that. Because that entirely ignores the fact that those people are entirely wrong for doing that, have for whatever reason oriented themselves in saying, I am justified in this. And if you don't deal with the fact that your society is producing that outcome, then you can't stop that other effect of people rioting. I am telling you, it is a one-to-one. When people say no justice, no peace, they're not saying it because it sounds nice. They're saying it because people recognize the deficit of justice. And one more thing, whether or not it's real or not, meaning whether or not the particular incident is fair game or not, meaning that cop killed that person because it's fair, etc. At this point, it's irrelevant. It's zero tolerance. And it's zero tolerance because for so many years, it went by undealt with. But also for whites. The thing that's maddening about this to me, honestly, is I ask myself, do blacks want to be killed to the degree that whites are killed? Because, and you would look at me like, what do you mean? Why do they want to be killed at all? All right then. Then why aren't whites out there protesting that stuff too? And why are you protesting of this kind of, yeah, you're killing us disproportionately. So if we kill you proportionately, will you be okay with that? Cops kill 1,000 people every year in the United States. A percentage of them disproportionately are black. Let's say like 24%. We only make up 13% of this country. Fair enough. They treat us poorly in comparison. Fair enough. They lock us up at a higher degree from the standpoint of drugs and from the standpoint of the dispensation of violence and the way that it is used. Fair enough. But do you want to be killed to the level of whites? And would that be acceptable to you? I would say the answer would be no. It's not acceptable to kill me to the level of whites, especially if you're killing 1,000 people a year. And yet you never get this kind of united front. And for once, you are, if that makes sense. Portland is a white state. And many of the people who are out there, especially people that got shot recently, those people were white. You have gotten this odd mix of people who say, not a step further, not one step back. If they're attacking us, or if they're attacking them, do I fight for my brother as I was fight for myself? And many of these people said yes. Some of them are doing it wrong. Some of them are going to diners and going, why won't you raise your fist for black folks? That type of stuff. That's not right. But how can I, and I've lived in poverty, so don't misunderstand me. How can I, who understands flesh to bone what it's like to live in impoverished conditions, and everything is a wall. Everything's a wall. Especially if you get ill, same thing. Everything is a wall. You get to these weird donut holes and everything else where you're just stuck. And the only way for you to deal with it is to acquiesce to the poverty, in which case you just say, okay, I need health care, so I can't do anything else, so I can't make an X amount, so I'm just going to be broke my entire life. Or you could take a leap of faith and put your body on the line, your health at risk, and try something else. I've been there. I grew up in it. So I have a certain feeling of people who might have been in worse case scenarios than I grew up in. And I'm telling you, it bites. And you have families that deal with it internally. Alcoholism, drug abuse. You have some who deal with it aggressively, where they may go out and say, I'm going to get a gun and I'm going to do what I got to do, ensure that I can live and keep my kids safe and everything else. You have people who deal with it differently. I'm making a point that the primary thing there is the poverty, is the jailing people, is the unemployment. Those things are primary. The reaction that you get is secondary. And if you want to have an honest to God conversation about it, you can't talk about one without the other. They're inextricably linked. The comfortable don't believe that. The comfortable look at this and say, that just needs to stop. I'm saying, say that needs to stop means to some degree this other thing needs to stop, because that's a mechanistic process that gets there. That's not a failing of character. That's something that you can infinitely foresee the moment that you allow that much poverty to get ensconced in your society. I'm finished.
I'm over it.
I'm finished.
They're talking about Rittenhouse now.
Yeah, I'm going to him. What were you gonna say?
Oh, it's
All of it was related.
you've already taken you've moved completely past what I was gonna say.
Oh, my bad. My bad. I didn't mean to exclude you, babe.
You did. Yeah, they're talking about Rittenhouse. And I think it's interesting to hear the back and forth about self-defense and
yeah. Well, let's go to the video. Let's hear the video. Right here.
All of it. That was an interesting.
So they're charging him with first degree with homicide now. Let's see. Let me pull this up. Give me 1 second. You want to give a read?
Jeff Shoemaker says,
unless there's super chats.
I stand with peace, and Rittenhouse was looking for violence.
What are the other super chats?
Oh, we did have a super chat. See, baby, we talking so much. I forget.
Well,
Ellie JJ says, happy birthdays and anniversary. Thank you, Ellie JJ. Robert Pookie Ray says, should Kenosha PD get charged? They corralled protesters to the militia. Conspiracy to commit harm or provoking a riot. Any thoughts? I welcome, because I don't know. Should the Kenosha PD get charged? Did they corral protesters to the media?
So here's the thing. So there were a few things. When Rittenhouse went out there with that huge weapon, the cops are like, good job, guys. Here's some water, buddies. Like, you're part of our team of sorts. The honest reality of it is, though, that Rittenhouse has a weapon. As Rittenhouse goes out, what does he expect to do with that weapon? Meaning, how do you police anything when you're not the police? And meaning, if I walk out with a weapon, A, that's provocative. That's the first point. I am holding this weapon. What do? How do you protect the business? You have no authority under anything. And even if you're going to say, I'm making a citizen's arrest, no citizen is going to accept that. None.
Right.
So you walk out with a weapon, and I don't know what you were doing with that weapon, by the way, before that, and somebody gets to the point of saying, I'm going to take it from you. Now, my thing is, why are you there? How are you protecting anything? And if the only thing that you have to protect it with, because you don't have any kind of legal authority to do that, the only thing you have is your weapon. So are you threatening people? Are you threatening to shoot people? Hey, I'll shoot you in the face with us. 17-year-old child soldier. And if you're doing that, and I test you, are you going to shoot me? And if you do shoot me, are you going to jail? Well, yeah, you're going to jail. So I don't know what authority he thinks he has. I don't even know what he thinks that gun is going to do, especially if he's not willing to burn it. And for him to burn it would be murder. Just being clear. Because regardless of what the person was doing, if they were setting someone on fire, they weren't messing with you while they were setting it on fire. You decided to do that. You decided to take that shot. So, it's like, how do you go to a place looking for this type of conflict and then is shocked when this type of conflict happens? I don't understand. That's the part that gets me. You cross state lines, and after you shoot somebody, they're like, hey, that guy shot somebody. So let's say I can get engaged in a fight with you. I shoot you. Other people say, oh my God, he just shot somebody. We got to get him. That guy just killed somebody. We need to provide a citizen's arrest, and we need to get Rittenhouse. And they run after Rittenhouse. And Rittenhouse says, oh my God, they're trying to get me. Pop, 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 pop. Kills. Pop, pop. blows his arm off. Now, the guy he blew his arm off had a gun. But understand what happens. Even if you give Rittenhouse the benefit of the doubt for the first one, meaning the first guy that was chasing Rittenhouse, he had a bag. He threw the bag at him, plastic bag. And then he gets closer to Rittenhouse. Apparently, they scuffle, falls to the ground, pop, 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 pop. Shoots him, kills. Rittenhouse gets up. Now, anybody that was around him, if this was a mass shooter, if they could get the gun away from the mass shooter, would have done so. And they would have been awarded as a hero for doing so. They would have said, thank you very much. You protected all of these people. Even if you give him the first one, how do you give him the second? He shot the second one too. But those people were at that point bound to get that gun away from him if they could. And they said, that guy just murdered somebody.
And that's why they were chasing him.
And that's why they were chasing him. So, like, even if you give him the first, you're stuck with the second. If they get on the stand and they say, all right, fair enough. You're like, you're threatened by this person who's chasing you for whatever reason. Yes, the gun is provocative, but that doesn't give anybody justification to kill you any more than it gives you any justification to kill them if you were at the place. And you have every right in the world to defend yourself. Even if they say that. They could say, so for the first one, you're right. However, for the second one, you did just kill somebody.
Right.
Whether you want to call it self-defense or not, you did still just kill somebody. And those other people are looking to disarm you because you just did that. Now, you can make a case and say, well, wait a minute. At this point, he clearly can't disarm. He clearly has to shoot somebody else. Which, is like, okay, maybe that's kind of grim. And then you can say, and he clearly could kill anybody who was out there at that point because of mob violence. So if he is philosophically able to stand there, if he had a full clip and mow down every last person that he thought might have came after him, and it's justified. Now, you can make that argument, right? Because that's basically what the other argument is saying. The other argument is those arguments are equal. Tell me if I'm wrong. If you're going to say that, yes, when that first guy was chasing him, threw the bag at him, and he shot the guy and killed that guy, he was justified in doing that because his life was on the line. When the other people came after him, he was also justified in killing them because his life was still on the line from the first murder that took place. Everybody else that was near him, just like the guy whose arms he blew off, was also justified under the same pretense. Meaning, if there were 20 people out there and he had 40 rounds, 50 rounds in that clip, every person he killed would have been fair game. He could have killed 20 people and they would have got on the stand and said, we think all of these killings were fair game because all of their lives were threatened by this guy. Or were being threatened, or they were threatening his life. Am I wrong that those arguments are the same thing? I mean, think about it for a moment.
I don't think so. I mean, are you asking me
asking
legitimately?
you,
I think you know
legitimately.
where I stand on this.
No. I know you stand where you're thinking that this is ludicrous from the standpoint of the argument. I'm making the point that, am I sound in my reasoning of what I'm saying? That basically, to make the case, if I am his lawyer, what I would do is, and this is why my mom says she never wants me to be a lawyer. I would say, look, I understand he was out there with his gun. I understand that was provocative. You can even make the case that he was out there looking for violence. But we don't know that was in his head. And because we don't know entirely that that's in his head, you can't entirely say that. What we do know is he felt a patriotic duty to go out there and try to defend those businesses that were being defamed. The lawyer can even say, and you should get a black lawyer to say it, he could even say, I even accept that there was poverty that was indiscriminately visited on all of those people that led up to the conditions that we have now. However, that does not make it fair or right that indiscriminate violence should be distributed on these people too. Many of these businesses even supported the interests that they were fighting against. So he decides to go and try to save those businesses. And while he was there, somebody attacked him. Now, does he have a right to defend himself in a situation that he put himself in? Our view is yes. And because our view is yes, when that guy attacked him and he shot him, that was a clean
He was
kill.
justified to shoot him.
When the second guy came after him, he is still working from the original premise that the first killing was legit, which means that technically nobody has been killed in a way like of a mass shooter. They've been killed in a way of self-defense. Right.
Yeah.
So the second guy also falls under the guise of self-defense. And to even go further, the third guy had a gun, and because of that, I had to put him down, even just to save my own life. Regardless of what you think of the other killings, I still had to preserve my own life. Which means that if 20 people were out there, I could have legitimately killed 20 people
If
to
I
preserve...
felt like they were attacking me.
Yes. I'm not a mass shooter. I'm a guy with a weapon.
Yeah.
Protecting my life.
Myself.
That's what my mom said. She never wanted me to be in law school. Well, will I win with that? I don't know. But that's a damn good argument. You got to admit. Now, so am I wrong in saying that the shooting those 3 people and killing 2 is equivalent to being able to argue and make the point of 20 people, if not 30 or more, that is coming after him, trying to attack him after he kills the first person?
I see what you're saying. I feel like it's a shit argument.
It feels equal, though.
Maybe.
Why is it a shit argument? Break down my argument. What's wrong with my argument?
I'm not good at these. You do the whole argument.
You said you said it was a shit argument.
Maybe because I'm looking and I'm because of the pretext of it, because of the pretense of it, because you went there, like, what's the word I'm looking for?
I gave you the exact argument that I would make if I was trying to get him off.
Because of the motive, because of
his intent.
What's the fucking
his intent? He put
that's
himself
not the
there.
word. Not the intent. Like it's premeditated.
But he didn't go there with the intention to kill anybody.
But I would say that maybe he went there with a gun.
Right.
Couldn't it be argued that
he went there with the gun to be provocative and to scare people, but not premeditated to kill anybody? Meaning, you can make a case that says, well, look, he took the gun. Yes. He went there. Yes. Should he have been there? No. Did he go there with the idea of murdering somebody that night? There's no proof of that. There is proof that he went there with a bunch of other right-wingers to basically walk around trying to scare the shit out of people with the guns.
Sketchy, and people are saying, Lizzie says exactly, Jamal, which is why he'll walk. Jay Scott said the hell he didn't go there with the intention to hurt somebody. Lizzie said watch him walk on first degree. I promise you.
I'm telling you, man, this argument,
like it
has legs.
It's sketchy. Like that's fucked.
And they charged him as homicide, which means that the prosecution has to basically prove of what I'm saying is wrong. How do you do that?
And that's what I'm saying.
You got to pierce that argument.
Yeah.
You got to pierce that argument.
Like maybe they should have gone for a lower level, lower charge.
But sometimes they overcharge to let the person off.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Maybe they should have gone for a lesser charge to make sure that they could convict him.
Because you got to be honest, that's a brutal argument. And that argument would hold true if the judge, meaning if the audience, if the juror said, okay, fair enough. All of those shootings were in self-defense. And for whatever reason he went there, the moment that somebody engaged and attacked him, he had a right to defend himself. If that's the argument, that's the George Zimmerman argument, right? The Trayvon Martin, right? Mm-hmm. And they let him off. They let Trayvon Martin's killer, Zimmerman, off. And basically Zimmerman followed Trayvon. The cop said, go away, go home. He continued to follow him, got into a fight with a 17-year-old, got beat by a 17-year-old, and then pulled out his weapon. He was the only one with a weapon that day. And shot him. And he said, I was justified in killing him despite the fact that I was the one that engaged him.
Now, I see no argument where that should have gone.
That's insane.
Wait, let's go back to this. Patrick S. said it was illegal for him to have the gun, going back to Rittenhouse.
Yes.
Now, that's true.
That's true.
Possession of a legal firearm isn't going to get him the same thing as murder.
Exactly. Well, but his argument is, wait. But his argument is the very basis that he had the gun being there makes it moot. He's guilty. I hope you understand what I mean. So for me to argue that, look, he didn't mean to go kill anybody, but he did have the right to defend himself. Well, the person says, well, yeah, but he wasn't even supposed to have the gun. So it's illegal from the basis of the argument. So meaning you can't bring into this notion that he was Levin Light here, or he was just there to show off. It doesn't matter. The gun is illegal in and of itself, meaning his performance there was illegal from jump, which means that you did kill those people because you were in the commission of a crime right off the bat. Under that logic, if they go with the notion that See, we got to get a lawyer on the show because to me, I get fascinated by the arguments that can be made. Because I gave you my argument. That's exactly where we go. Now, the issue for the other lawyer would be, how do I pierce that? How do I say that no bullshit? You can't fly off that. You can't say that you walk in there with a gun.
Was Garland a lawyer?
No, he was a cop.
Oh, okay.
Like, because a lawyer could say bullshit on your argument, buddy. You can't say that a person who took a gun into a volatile situation, him carrying the gun was illegal in and of itself, and then say, well, he was defending himself with the illegal firearm. No, that doesn't fly. The firearm was illegal, meaning him holding it was illegal from jump, and anything else is an extenuating circumstance from the illegality that he engaged in when he brought the gun in. Oh, I love this because it's so much like chess. Like you're trying to give an argument, and as your argument develops, your decision space constrains because your opponent is also trying to give an argument. The catch here is in chess, you have equal starts, even though our skills may be different. In this situation, the prosecution has dramatically more resources than that other person who's usually on the other side. Unless you get somebody who is wealthy, rich, like an O.J. Simpson of sorts, where I have the money to defend myself.
Right.
And I'm going to do so. And so, yeah, we're going to get the glove, and I'm going to, I can't get the glove in. And the guy, if the glove don't fit, you must quit.
Oh, God.
Like, you get that nonsense. Because at that point, you can fight over every... If I needed to spend $25 million to keep my ass out of a cage, would I do it? Fuck. Yes. Even if I had $25 million and $500,000 in my name, I would do it. Because nobody wants to be in a cage, right? And so, that's kind of where you get... I guess... Yeah. It's chess, but it's chess in an uneven playing field because oftentimes the defense attorneys, especially if the person can't afford their own, gets an uneven match with the prosecution.
Gardner says, again, this is the kind of thing that happens when media whips people up into a frenzy. True. Last week on your show...
Wait, be specific. What do you mean?
Let me finish what I'm saying.
Oh.
Last week on your show on Fault Lines, somebody called in and was talking about the protesters. And we were in the chat talking about how he was so angry. And somebody said, that guy's going to drive a car into a line of protesters. Because you could just hear him say, you could hear the anger in his voice. And it wasn't a surprise to me.
I just think none of it was real.
What do you mean?
None of the stuff that he's angry about in real terms is real. Like, these things are just religious beliefs. And people playing out religious beliefs in a sense of ideology. They don't call it religion. They should. They just call it that person's political ideology. But if the ideology is not in any way connected to reality, why should we call it just an ideology? Why don't we call it a religion? Because that is what a religion is. Meaning that guy calls in and gets really warped over something that is entirely in his head. It may be entirely false. And he is still fired up, pissed off, and angry. That's so much so he'd call into a radio station. And you guys would get the impression that guy's going to drive his car into a crowd of people. Well, if he does that, that means that he's functioning from a reality standpoint that is just basically untrue. And he's willing to go to these extreme lengths as pursuit of what? White glory? To make a statement? It's one thing if he goes to somebody's door and sets himself on fire. Fair enough, buddy. That's a strong statement. I think the statement is bullshit, but fair enough. That's you dealing with it. Somebody did that to Robert McNamara over the Vietnam War. But it's another thing when you're dealing with this and you're thinking all of these things are in your head and you get to the point of saying, I need to take physical action for stuff that's in my head with no level of introspection on whether or not it's even true.
Right.
That's dangerous. I mean, that's like the shooting thing where the person when they shot up the mosque. Or blow up the place for the African American thing back in the 60s or 70s. Yeah, it's problematic.
Rob says he's from Illinois. He breaks Wisconsin curfew and broke Wisconsin gun law. Is that right? Wisconsin?
Yeah, he did.
Oh.
Well, he's from Illinois. Antioch, Illinois, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I just said that.
And he broke Wisconsin rules. Right. He crossed the lines. So when he crossed into Wisconsin, he was breaking the law. Well, that's what I mean when I say...
Alexis says, and it does seem like he did go there to kill people.
But we don't know that. That's what I mean. Like, so here's the thing. Here's my biggest fear of stuff like this. And I think this is this downward spiral of a system. And this is why it's connected to poverty. One of the most fascinating things that I'm beginning to understand is when you're looking at other countries. And you're looking at how those countries collapsed, how those countries fell, how those countries fell apart. And you look at what's taking place in the U.S. You start with an economic scenario where you give a ton of money to the top and you leave a little ton of less from everybody else. Meaning Obama gives 95% of the income to the top 1%. And this trend had been going on since, let's say, Reagan, but even before into, what is his name? Oh, it'll come to me. God damn it, what is his name? I can see it's Jimmy Carter. All the way back to Jimmy Carter. Meaning you had a wealth transfer that started where the rich got into hyperdrive of buying Democrats. And those Democrats, that people had an idea in their heads of what they were, meaning these guys are the guys who are fighting for the poor. These are guys who want higher taxes on the wealthy, etc. They had an idea in their heads of what they were. When those Democrats moved to the right, those people didn't have the chance to entirely realize that their party had moved to the right. And they continued to vote Democrat based on word alone of what those Democrats were saying. So in the context of one generation, you had a generation that doesn't see the change yet. You have another generation that is functioning off the previous information from the previous generation. You have another generation that still goes with the notion, blue no matter who, least worse, Republicans are maniacs, etc., etc., etc. And you get a generations of sheep, all adjusted and attenuated to the very same idea of blue no matter who, despite the fact that the Democratic Party had moved far to the right, so much so that they appropriate many of the policies that the right wing appropriates. That shit never more clear than what took place in 2020, where you had all of them collapse around this notion of stopping Sanders. So what was the question again? I'm sorry, because I think I went somewhere.
You did.
What was the question?
I'm focused on the next thing to ask.
No. Tell me what was the thing again.
I said something about breaking curfew and gun law.
Oh, right. He said he's broke curfew and gun law. Oh, you're talking about the kid, right. My point is, look. My point is this.
I'm trying to move you to the next topic.
I'm going, but my point is this. No, my point is this. Those people who are out there are not out there because they want to be. They're not. You have all sorts of issues. I went through Kenosha, Wisconsin, and I was showing you the poverty. It was like 39% poverty. It was like 3 or 4 times unemployment higher than it was for white workers. You get into the number of black communities, and the majority of black communities were basically prisons. I mean, these are hostile situations, and then not to even go into the rental stuff where the number of people who are being evicted from their homes. What do you think that is? That's trauma. That's trauma in a regressive way that they are dealing with individually and alone, isolated and separated from an aspect of your society that is comfortable. It explodes when they realize that their situation is not right and it needs to change. My point is, when your system, political system, ignores that, you get people who explode. Your political system continues to ignore that. And you get people, especially under a right-wing president, who says, both of those Nazis and those other guys are nice people. And when they go out there, their president gives them a muted. You have Tucker Carlson give them the muted. Meaning this guy just killed 2 people and maimed 1, and you guys are saying great job when he's going to protest. Now, the protests are legitimate and rational. They're not being pushed by anybody. It's being pushed by anger at a particular system where all of these people say, zero tolerance. We've had decades of this, no more. And they rise up and start setting shit on fire, or, for the matter, have peaceful protests or protests. The reaction to this, however, is not legitimate. It's rational from their point of view of, we want to get this race war started, or we want to get this class war started, or we want to get some kind of war started, we want to get some fighting back and forth started. The Nazis used to do that, right? They used to go to places and they used to get beat up and have video cameras say, look at us getting beat up. Oh, we're fighting for the flag, we're fighting for the Nazi flag. We're trying to save Germany. Same guys. We're trying to fight for these businesses. We're trying to save these businesses. And you have right-wingers who would say it's legitimate for them to protect those businesses because it's illegitimate or indiscriminate violence. That's what they would say, and they would argue. And from their point of view, it makes all the sense in the world that we should be here to protect these businesses. That mom and pop business didn't do anything to those protesters. That business, that was a dry cleaner, black-owned, didn't do anything to those protesters. They have no right to take that protester down. And they would be right, and they would be wrong. Because the fact is, those people who gained their legitimacy from the pain and anguish to which their society dealt with them also felt that it was indiscriminate on them. And when you cry indiscriminate, they don't care because, hey, we had to deal with it. Meaning, when Germany bombs England.
Okay, wait. No more meetings. We got to bring this down because it's 12:15.
When Germany bombs England, and they do it indiscriminately to punish the society, what does England do? It bombs Germany. If I'm mistaken, I think it was the other way around. England burned German population first. But they did it because they're trying to say tit for tat. It's indiscriminate, yes. It was unfair that you bombed those places, yes. But it was unfair in the same way. I'm making the point that their legitimacy in doing stuff like this is coming from the society to which they come from. And even though those places say it's unfair, those places are absolutely right. The other people say it's unfair. It doesn't give justification per se. It's just is what it is. Look.
Okay.
My point is, when those right-wingers come out for that and they start bringing out guns, what do you think the protesters are going to do? They're going to bring out guns. You're going to get fights on the streets where two groups, factions, protesters who started to arm themselves against right-wingers who are fully armed. And the question becomes, how do you deal with that as a system when neither party is talking about the primary issue? That's my issue, right? This escalates because the primary thing never gets dealt with. It's one thing if Joe Biden came out, gave a speech and says, we're going to deal with poverty. We're going to end poverty. 3 years. Now, that would be fucking monstrous. And you better have a fucking major idea to do that. And then continues to say, poverty leads to this, this, and this. These outcomes. We are going to be the term that stops that. He would get people, he would have people flipping out. He would never do that, though, because that would cost cash. And he never wants to talk about it in those terms. I'm saying that's the death spiral, where you have a society that is pitted against one another and basically have a self-driving logic that creates them to clash with escalating violence on each side. That is one of the best explanations you would get on that anywhere. Okay, go ahead. You don't appreciate it. So if you want to leave, you can leave. You don't need to be here. I can do it all on my own. That was a great explanation.
Okay, we'll cut to the clip so I can go.
I have to have self-serving, confidence living with you, because otherwise it would be rough. Unfortunately,
man.
Unfortunately, I have that level of self.
Somebody's got to bring you back to fucking task because you're all over the place. And there's super chats on here, and I don't got all day.
Do the super chats. Jesus,
I'm sorry. I got to scroll back up here.
I'm sorry.
We got time constraints.
No. I'm just saying.
We already know what you're saying.
That explanation.
I'm moving on. Your explanation was awesome.
Point.
It was marvelous.
You're gonna have to cut that back.
It was the bomb. Your explanation was great.
You need to write.
But we got to move on.
You got to cut that back.
We have got to move the fuck on.
Okay.
Robert Pookie Ray, did you answer? Should Kenosha PD get charged? Yes or no? 10 seconds or less.
Charged with what?
They corralled.
Oh, because
he said, did they corral protesters to the militia?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah, that was 20 minutes ago.
I don't know. That's a legal question. I don't know the legalities.
Conspiracy to commit harm or provoking a riot.
For example, if I say, hey, here's some water, good job, guys, does that mean that you're giving this impression that these people are working with you? And does that embolden them to take action like that, thinking that we're working with the PD? Because, at the end of it, he says, I'm with so-and-so. I'm with so-and-so. Like he was with some kind of clique of cops. I don't know. That's a legal thing. I don't know.
Okay.
Oh, God. That's fascinating. It's fascinating.
Yeah, it was fascinating 20 minutes ago when he asked it. That's why we got to stick to this.
Keep going.
Okay. I got to scroll down to the other one, so bear with me. Thank you guys for the super chats. Emblem Med Fate. I don't know. Said, saw you at MPP.
Yes.
What's MPP?
Movement for People's Party.
Okay. Says, nice job. Do you feel it's a little worrying that there wasn't that many right-wingers? Need to include more disillusioned libertarians. Says, saw you at the Movement for People's Party.
I mean, let's be honest. Most of those guys are to the left. I mean, if you have Cornel West, Nina Turner, those guys, I mean, by definition, These guys go to the left. If you're talking about Jesse Ventura is somewhere in the middle. No, I'm not concerned that you would have more right wingers. I mean, if you're talking about the spectrum of America that you want to get, the majority of those people are to the left. The Democratic Party is to the left to the right of what the American public wants. I can go down. You can item by item by item by item. Medicare for all, 88%, 70% outside the party. That's dominating. Expansion of Social Security, 70-something% outside the party, even higher inside the party. Elimination of student debt, that's 60-70% inside the party. College, universities free. Outside the party, again, 50-60%. So all of these party policies are popular. The Democratic Party say, yeah, kick rocks. We don't want to touch that. And so it's not, when you're talking about the People's Party, if the People's Party says, look, we're going to take the policies that are most popular, and that's going to be our platform, period, then by definition, it's not going to be to the right. In fact, by definition, it's going to be to the left of the Democratic Party. So I'm not surprised that there weren't more right-wingers at the People's Party thing. My fear is that, and my concern is, maybe they would have gotten more bang for their buck by standing under just saying, these are the policies we're pushing for, period. Accept it or don't. Because that's a clear demand. And the more people you can get under that clear demand, even if it's people who say, all right, I'm going to punk out at the end, but in the beginning, I'm going to try to scare the hell out of them. Even if it did that, that they would have had some more bang for their buck by anybody who just said, I'm okay with those policies, including Republicans. But you may get Republicans who say, yeah, I have a kid that's sick. I want Medicare for all. I understand it.
Yeah.
And, it gets under that and so forth. So I feel you, but I wouldn't be bothered by that. I wouldn't let that bother you.
Can I write something on your paper?
Yeah.
Somebody's given us a topic for you to cover for later. Also, for those of us that, I kind of know what you're talking about, but for anyone that's not familiar, when did this take place?
This was Sunday.
So the movement for People's Party was Sunday, from 3 to 5?
Yeah.
Do you know
3 to 9. I thought it went to 9 o'clock. It was late.
Is there somewhere that we can catch a retaping of that or something?
Yes. It is. I think I have a thing up. So I'll try to find it.
And that's the thing that's led by Nick Brana?
Nick Brana, yeah. Movement for People's Party.
So if you didn't hear my spiel earlier, this is contributor appreciation, aka audience appreciation. We used to do this once a week, and this is a time where it's very casual. As you can tell, I usually pop in to help to keep him on task. And we put a post on the Patreon platform to ask patrons to give their topic suggestions. We like to say thank you for all of the support that you give to Jamal's channel, whether it is through Patreon, Super Chat, Streamlabs, PayPal, whether it's just you coming and viewing the shows, giving them a thumbs up, making sure that you are subscribed. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And as Jamal mentioned at the beginning of this video, he's been a little under the weather, back and forth with surgeries for the last month. And so it's been a while since we've done this. So we just wanted to pop in very quickly today to get a video in for contributor appreciation. So thank you for everyone who is here supporting Jamal. My name is Aisha, Jamal's wife, if you did not know that. Mrs. Thomas, aka Mrs. Progressive Soapbox. And thank you guys. If you are a patron, make sure that you are logging on to the Patreon platform and giving your topic suggestions. We're trying to get caught up with everyone there. Thank you guys for all of your support. Skeptical Mantis says he wants you to cover, oh crap, he just gave another one. So I am writing down your topic suggestions for Jamal because he has to run out. So we are not going to be on here for
No, we can go for a while. I mean, for another 15, 20 minutes.
I know, but he's got some stuff that's going to require some research. Excuse me.
What's the topic?
Skeptical Mantis says, can you please cover the cases of Black revolutionary political prisoners? Progressives often ignore people like Mumia, Sundiata, Ekolai, Jamil al-Amin. That is what I wrote down. So thank you for the super chat, Skeptical Mantis. There was another one. Ex-Hippie 503 says, Salem, Oregon, these they're flying the yellow snake flags in their giant trucks ever since Obama. I'm a disabled vet that grows medical pot. They think that they're rebels. The cops are using them to intimidate us. Ex-Hippie says that's in Salem, Oregon.
Well, that's right there. That's the point. Like when you see these intimidation, because when you see these guys and these right wingers and these cops, and the cops and the right wingers are in same mind, like the mindset that these guys are in, we're holding back the night, we're law and order, we're the good guys, etc., etc. And so they allow these right wing mobs to go up there with those guns. Again, what is the point of that gun? That is a provocation, and that's a citizen with a gun that has no authority to use that gun for anything. Like, he might have had a bottle of water for all intents and purposes if he's going to just use it for, meaning you have this weapon that is basically inert from a legal standpoint. You can't shoot people for rioting or protesting. Cops can try to disperse the crowd, but cops don't even go out and shoot people. Meaning, you don't have a situation where a cop goes and, gets into a fight. In fact, people wouldn't even do that with a cop. Like, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
He's out here with no authority. All of these people are out here with no authority. Now, whatever you want to say about the protests or the riots, you can say whatever you want. At the end of the day, he has zero authority, and he's out there with a gun. So, it's only a provocation. It can only be used to scare. And if people test his mettle, and then he shoots. So, yeah. What? Did I answer that?
Did you?
Yeah, I think I did. Yeah. I think I did. Yeah.
Melissa Petrovic says she's a #1 fan. Thank you for your super chat.
Thank you.
Skeptical Mantis, do you have Jamal's email? Because Skeptical Mantis is giving some topic suggestions. Says, JT, can you cover... Oh, man. My pronunciation is not quite as bad as Jamal's, but sometimes it's not that great. JT says, can you cover the Mapuche indigenous struggle in Chile? It's all over the headlines in Spanish language news, but not English speaking media.
One thing about them driving around in trucks, again, that's a provocation.
So you're not responding to what
I will respond to it, but I'm just saying it's a provocation. Think about it for a moment. You have these guys who, and not just provocation, because there are violent protests sometimes, or because the riots are out there sometimes, your American society looks at that as disorder. Meaning, it looks at a protest and says, okay, fair enough. It's not uncomfortable. And the protest has a hint of a potential of violence, which is why cops get really edgy about the protest stuff, because it's like, we're the order in the society. And because if the cops get overwhelmed, what's next? The military? What is the military going to do? Is it going to mow down those people? Like, it gets really dicey at that point.
Yeah.
And so, but when you have right wingers doing stuff, you have these guys driving around in trucks. And that's what the guy reported. That had guns. Some of these guys had paintball guns. Some of them had real guns. And in some cases, you had battles in the streets. These guys are malicious. Like, whatever you want to think of Antifa is not a militia. Antifa is not anything. It's just people who are just against fascists. But these guys are coming in as trained militiamen with weapons, with tacit approval by the cops to basically act as they act. And you heard, we had the other guy on one of the show the other day. He said, we knew that if we engaged in a fight, they'd stop us, but they wouldn't stop them. It was that stuff. That's what you're seeing on the streets. I mean, it's not, it's so people are always bitching, moan about Antifa. I think, again, the problem here is that people ignore the primary instigator, poverty. Meaning, it's a policy failure. You've allowed your policy to get to the point where you've just let it, where people have just said, fuck it, and have not tried to deal with any of it. Either candidate. And they're trying to get elected. And the biggest issue in the world, for this country's standpoint, they don't touch it. Like, it's just phenomenally astonishing, that's all. I'm sorry. Let me go back to the other one. So, she was the one right here. Jamal, can you cover the Mapuche indigenous struggle in Chile? It's all over the headlines in Spanish language news, but not in English language. I gotta be honest, I hadn't heard nothing about it. I will look it up. I'll check in the morning to see if Shane is into it. Usually he is.
Maybe that'll be something that you cover on Fault Lines.
Yeah.
Is there anybody in the chat who hasn't watched Fault Lines or doesn't know what Fault Lines is? Let me know. I'll school you if you need me to.
So let's listen to Trump's response to being asked about Rittenhouse. Now, people are angry at this, but I got to be honest, people are angry at Trump for everything, so who knows? Let's hear Trump talk about Rittenhouse.
The vigilantes like Kyle Rittenhouse.
We're looking at all of it. That was an interesting situation. You saw the same tape as I saw, and he was trying to get away from them, I guess, it looks like, and he fell, and then they very violently attacked him, and it was something that we're looking at right now, and it's under investigation, but I guess he was in very big trouble. He would have been. He probably would have been killed. But it's under investigation.
Do you condemn the actions of vigilantes like Kyle Rittenhouse?
We're looking at all of it. That was an interesting situation. You saw the same tape as I saw, and he was trying to get away from them, I guess, it looks like, and he fell, and then they very violently attacked him. And it was something that we're looking at right now, and it's under investigation. But I guess he was in very big trouble. He would have been. He probably would have been killed. But
basically, he had to do what he had to do. He might have been killed. I mean, those people were on him. What was he supposed to do?
So Trump says it was self-defense.
I mean, right, because basically, and I think that's what they're going to argue in court. What was he supposed to do? They're going to say, if it was you in his shoes, and it was out at night, and there were a bunch of people angry at you, trying to attack you and trying to come at you, what do you do? Your heart is racing, your heart's beating. What do you do? What do you do? You want to go home to your mom, you want to go home to your Xbox, your friends. What do you do? Do you let them take your gun, or do you shoot them in preservation of yourself? And they're going to say, do you really believe that a person should allow his gun to be taken from him, or for his person to be beat up? Meaning, even if they didn't kill him, what if they just beat the living shit out of him? Is that enough for him to use this gun to provoke? Meaning, even if he thought, oh God, they're going to beat, they're going to kick my ass.
He had to defend himself, and the means that he had to defend himself was with his weapon.
Right. Is that fair game? And I suspect that's where the case is going to hinge. The problem here is, you weren't supposed to have the weapon in the first place. Meaning the very basis of you being there was illegal, and everything else was perpetuation of the crime. If you argue it from that term, then it may make the other one null and void. Meaning you can argue all you want that he could defend himself. The problem is, he could have defended himself with a knife, the gun was illegal, and him crossing into our state with that gun made all this other stuff a moot point in regards to whether or not it's homicide or something else. It was a perpetuation of the crime. It's like if I rob a liquor store, and I stumble out and I kill somebody. Let's say it's accidentally. I just, accidentally, the person stumbles over my foot as I stumble out of the place, and he hits his head on something and dies. The prosecutor could come out and say, that guy dying who hit his head is a perpetuation of that crime, because if you weren't running out of that store, stealing that liquor, that candy bar, that guy would be alive today. And the judge may say, okay, fair game. Because the fact is, the moment that you break the first law, anything else beyond that first law being broken is contained within the context of a crime is being committed. And murder is being committed because you did X or Y. I'm saying it's the same thing with this case. And maybe I'm saying it wrong. Let's say I go into a candy store. I steal a candy bar. The bar owner gets mad at me, pulls out a gun, and I run. And I'm running away. As I run away, I stumble and hit somebody accidentally, and they fall, hit their head, and crack their skull open, and starts bleeding, and they die. I get up and continue to start running, and I keep going, trying to get away. The prosecutor looks at this case and says, okay, there's the theft. And in pursuit and perpetuation of that theft, because he didn't want to get caught, he, accidentally or not, hit up against this man, who, if you did not commit that crime, this man will still be alive. Ergo, this murder, and maybe not murder, let's say manslaughter, let's say unintentional murder, whatever you want to call it, but manslaughter or this person died, whatever, is a perpetuation of the crime. Ergo, we are charging you with murder and manslaughter. And if they could tack on another crime, they would do so. I'm making the point that in the same way, is it like that as opposed to is it the self-defense argument? Meaning which one holds sway in a legal sense, or for that matter, in an argumentative sense. He crossed into the Illinois border. or he crossed into from Illinois. The moment that he stepped foot in this state with this weapon, he was
Crime number one.
crime number one. Perpetuating that crime, he carries
He's a
that
minor.
gun. Right, he has a minor. Perpetuating that crime, he gets into a gunfight. Well, he wasn't supposed to have the gun there in the first place. And regardless of why they got into a fight, the fact that he had the gun and killed somebody, it was a perpetuation of the original crime, which is coming to the state with that gun. You weren't supposed to do it, buddy. That's illegal. Anything else doesn't matter. Like, you get into a fight and everything else, yeah, but you weren't supposed to have the gun in the first place. If you didn't have the gun, you wouldn't be there. Because they would have to make the argument that even if he didn't have the gun, he'd be there.
Zox made a good point. The driver gets charged with murder too if the robber kills people.
Yes, that's right.
That's a good point too.
That's right. That's right. The problem here is it's sketchy because it's the
I don't know.
driver
These
bringing
arguments
him.
and
It's so
these-
fascinating because
That's
we don't
not the
know
word
what
I
they're
would
going to
use.
argue in court.
It hurts my brain.
It doesn't know. We don't know.
Because I don't know how all this is going to fly. It's a fuck fest.
We'll know soon if they start making arguments. Like if the families start making demands and saying, no, this is what happened or something like that. We will know soon. Because look, he is going to have to get his family or they're an attorney. They are going to get a legal fund because a lot of people are going to be like, no, man, it was self-defense. Fuck that. We got to defend our shops. We got to defend our shops. You're going to get those people in. And those people are going to think they're right in doing and protecting their businesses this way. There was a person, meaning if you had a business, let's say you and I,
No meaning.
let's say you and I started a radio show. And let's say our radio show was in a community, let's say like Silver Springs. And in one of those communities, there's a shopping center. It's a pretty decent shopping center. It's thriving. It's thriving to some degree. And a cop shoots and kills a person. Now, this side of the community is decent, but a block away, it is not. And a block away, it is pretty crime-ridden because it's dirt poor around the area. They get pissed off, and they go, and they come to the radio shop, and we're at the shop. I have a shotgun. Do you use it to protect your property? And if you do, are you going to jail? What are you going to feel like doing, though? Like, think about it for a moment. What do you feel like doing? Like, you feel pissed off if they're breaking your windows and they're tearing your shit up. And you already agree with them. And you're screaming, I fucking agree with you. I fucking agree with you. And it doesn't matter. It's indiscriminate. You would feel some kind of way.
Somebody said the gun was given to him by one of the volunteers. The Fixerism says the gun was given to him there by one of the volunteers. That's not right, is it?
Oh, I don't know.
His mom gave him the gun. I
don't
thought,
know.
or his mom bought him the gun.
I'm not sure. I mean, he has a gun in his picture. Nikolai
says they'll say nobody was supposed to be there because there was a curfew in place.
Yeah.
So everyone was an accessory to murder.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, they'll say some stupid shit like that, yeah. But it wasn't everyone was accessory to murder. Yeah, people were there for different reasons. Meaning, the fact that they put the curfew there, again, they're trying to stop free speech. On the second point, though, those people are there because they're legitimately angry. They're not pretending to be angry. They're there. They're pissed off. And they're pissed off for something that was a precursor in your society that even now, the majority of people don't talk about. Like, we were talking about Rittenhouse. Why was Rittenhouse there? Rittenhouse was there because he thought he needed to hold back the night. Well, why did Rittenhouse think he needed to hold back the night? Because people got really pissed off when that cop shot that guy. So wait, why were those people there? It's a trail of logic, right?
Yeah.
And at a certain point, you get to the initial thing of, oh, that. The majority of the places there are prisons. That probably doesn't go over well. That's probably not a great community if that's happening. We need to deal with that. But nobody wants to do that. That's expensive. That costs money. That's massively fucked up. That's all.
Yeah.
That it turns out that way.
All right, we got to end it on these super chats.
Oh, go
It's
for
12:40.
it. Go for it.
Wallow Jones says, "Thank you for doing early morning news. Your radio show is the first thing I watch most days." I didn't see who asked this, but just really quickly before I forget, take on it. I lost the person, but someone asked, why isn't the Movement for People's Party mentioned on fault lines?
We're trying to get... So tomorrow, we're going to have 2 guests from that show.
Okay, so...
Like 2 guests tomorrow are going to be from Moving from the People's Party.
Okay.
I've also asked Nick Braun if he would come on, and we would have like a trifecta of it.
Okay.
But the answer is they're coming on tomorrow.
Okay, so Melissa Petrovic, thank you for your super chat, says, great job, Jamal, at People's Party Convention. Proud of you and other participants. Please talk more about the new movement. So in response to that, They are going to be doing that on Fault Lines this week.
We will tomorrow.
Ramona Lawson, thank you for the super chat. Ramona says, in Portland, many of the counter protesters came in vehicles with license plates removed. And did they get stopped by police for that? I think not. Different rules based on your POV.
And again, when he killed those people, after shooting 2, maiming 1, he walks to the cops calmly with his weapon. Apparently, he's on the phone saying, I just killed somebody. He walks to the cop and says, I'm with so-and-so. I'm with so-and-so. Meaning, they knew each other. He tried to explain to them, I'm with this group over here. I'm with this group over here. Because by doing so, it makes it as if that's okay somehow. Isn't it astonishing? Can you imagine a black person coming and doing that? I'm with so-and-so. I have video where they shot a black guy for reaching for his wallet. Literally. Go get your wallet.
After they told him to get his wallet.
Yes, go get your wallet. He goes for his wallet, and the guy shoots him. He says, "What the fuck is wrong with you? You lunged in the car. You told me to get my wallet." That right winger that I had on Fault Lines, and I told him about that. He tried to come at me on Twitter and was like, "This, he's pointing some video I did." I said, "What are you talking about, dude? This is the video I'm talking about. Give me an apology. Give me an apology. I want an apology." That's when you turn around. I want an apology. I want an apology right now. You get indignant about it. You start making a fuss about it. Just start screaming until you get your apology. I'm sorry. This guy's, fucking crazy. Well, yeah, because you were coming at me on Twitter. I'm the one that knocks. I would have never said it if it wasn't true, because it didn't necessarily. When I argue, you would know this. When I argue, I don't curse. I get more acute. Right, you do. But I get more acute. Meaning, my sense of trying to go after the person and make sure they're wrong. It's very specific and very acute. And I do that, and I don't want to curse because I think it undermines what I want to get across and say. Meaning, I don't want the person to focus on something that I said as a curse word. I just want them to get across what I'm saying in words in general and trying to make them wrong. This is... Okay, skip that. Go to the next one.
Oh, I'm done. We can finish.
Okay. I think that's all. I did want to do a video on progressive Democrats. Because as I was on the show today, I realized something.
You want to do it now on this video?
Just a primer, but I'll do it on a later show.
A primer?
What I realized was that progressive Democrats have internalized...
Is that oxy?
Well, they're the battered wives of the political space. The Uncle Toms equivalent of the political space. Whatever they say politically about what they want. Like they would say, oh, we want Medicare for all, but we got to work in the party. Oh, we want, Green New Deal, but we got to work in the party. We can't drag ourselves from the party, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They would tell you everything is wrong and still say, well, we got to stay in the party. Those guys. I realized they don't honestly believe that it's possible to achieve the stuff that they talk about. And so they cling to the Democratic Party. Because when the Democratic Party elects a candidate, they say and accepts the argument that this candidate is not going to give you anything. He owes you nothing. You owe him everything in your allegiance. And they would go out and tell other lefties, you're supposed to vote for the Democrat. And you say, well, wait a minute, but why? They're not getting your policies. And they accept the premise that you're going to let Trump win. If you do that, you're going to let Trump win. You like Trump, you're a Trump lover. And you're like, but what are you talking about? You don't even like their policies. I mean, 70% of you are voting for Joe Biden entirely because he's not Donald Trump. And they would say, yes, but you got to take one in the ass for America sometime. And this is one of those times. And I'm like, no, this is not. And I would try to explain to them that the very fact that you take that term to some degree means that you accept the Democrats' framing of the world that least worse is the best that you can get. And Joe Biden has to give you nothing. He offers you nothing. And yet he expects your vote. So you've accepted an inversion of the political process where instead of the candidate coming and get your vote, they're trying to get popular will and say, all right, I'm going to build a coalition of these people and I'm going to get my vote. You've accepted an inversion where the candidate can scare the living shit out of you to vote for and get those people a section to back him, despite the fact that he offers them nothing. And then reach out to another faction, believing that this other faction is going to somehow be their gateway into delegitimizing and making that other faction that much more irrelevant in the political process. You've accepted that you can't win. And as I was doing the show today, I was like, that has to be it. Like, there's nothing else that can answer that. Meaning, they don't accept that you can take politics as a way of saying, no, you stand outside the political space and you say, this is what we want, or you don't get our support, especially when you can prove and demonstrate that all of these other people want it. They've turned and inverted and say, honestly, here we are between our God and ourselves. We don't believe we can do it. Lefties don't have that thought. Lefties are operationally wanting, these are the policies that we want. And it is unacceptable that you don't do this when this number of people back it. I look at it and say, this is infinitely possible. You just got to push.
Right.
I imagine Sanders looks at it and says, we can't really get it done. And so I'm just got to back Biden. Because even though I understand that the public doesn't want this stuff, the public would prefer my platform, I don't want to push for it, because if I push for it, I don't want to be considered Ralph Nader. And as such, I don't want the country to slide off a cliff with Trump. And so not only do I not believe that the policies could come to pass, not only do I not believe the Democrats will acquiesce, even if those people stood out there and said, these are our demands. Meaning, I accept we're not in a representative government at this point. I just believe this is the best that we can get, that Trump shouldn't win. I am going to go out and push for it. They don't believe that the policies that they say that they want are possible. And so they don't push for those policies. It's rational. Like if I'm telling you we need to push for Medicare for all, and you say, yeah, I like Medicare for all. And then the election comes up and you say, well, you got to back Biden. I say, but wait a minute, he doesn't back Medicare for all. You said, dude, this is the pragmatic choice. This is what you got to go for. Man, Biden. I said, but yeah, why do you invert it? Why is it Biden's job to get your vote as opposed to your job to get Biden in office? Those are dramatically different things. He said, well, dude, Trump could win. I understand that. But shouldn't Biden be appropriating your policies the other way around? And if he did appropriate that policy, he would draw more people into the party that would make the win more likely as opposed to the other way around. But Biden won the primary. Yeah, I get that. But why are you inverting politics? Yeah, but you got to invite. I mean, you're going to get Trump elected. Dude, do you hear what the fuck I'm telling you? I don't give a shit if Satan himself is on the other side of the dispatch box. What does that have to do with you getting your candidate to appropriate your policies? They would never understand it. Because deep within them, the honest truth of it is they don't believe they can win it. They've already accepted the loss. That is infinitely sad. But I think it's infinitely true. Which is why when Sanders ended it all, he just put his head down. Somebody propped his stomach up with a pillow. And somebody else pulled his pants down. And it went from there. Didn't have to be that way. The leftovers was put into Sam Cedar cereal. And Sam Cedar and his kid ate it. Understood he ate it. And still said, this is what I must bear for my country. And I will go and vote Joe Biden. TYT did the same thing. That's vicious. But there's a level of truth in that somewhere. Like reading a Bible verse that gets to the spirit of it without necessarily the facts being exactly accurate.
All right.
What did I say wrong? What did I say wrong? What did I say wrong?
All right.
What did I say wrong?
Timothy Dannenhofer, thank you for your super chat. I think we're done.
What's the super chat?
On that note, he just gave a super chat. He didn't have a comment.
Oh, okay. All right, there's one last thing.
No.
Okay.
And you just got the phone call.
So this is Biden responding to the protests. Do you want to hear that?
No.
You gave Trump a chance to say
No.
something.
I didn't do anything. And you just asked me.
You implicitly approved.
You
by
just
sitting
asked
here.
me, did I want to? And I said no.
You said, let's get to Trump.
Does my answer mean nothing?
Wait, you did say, let's get to Trump.
No, I didn't.
I promise you did.
Rewind it.
No, it may not be on here. We were talking, but you said, let's get to
No,
Trump.
it's fucking on here. It's all recorded.
Okay.
You said, do I want to? And I said no.
To get to Trump?
I don't know. You asked me, did I want to? Whatever you asked me, I said no.
I'm saying early on, you were sitting here. You said, let's get to Trump.
I don't know,
I
but
swear
whatever
to
you
God,
just
I am not
asked me,
lying to
I
you.
said no.
Right. I'm saying that's unfair
I don't
to
care.
Joe Biden.
The world is not fair.
Because you did say.
We have a Trump and Biden presidential run.
Right.
Clearly, the world is not fair. It's over. It's done.
No, I mean the world's not fair.
It's 12:51.
Reality is that, but we can rise to a higher level. I want to show you this 28-second speech by Biden.
You can show
It's
them.
just 28 seconds.
Just pause the video so that I can get up.
This is
Really? You're gonna leave it like that? You're gonna bail like that? I pay you. That's why money shouldn't come in relationships like that. Because after all, at the end of the day, it's like I pay you cash. I don't even ask for your labor all the time, just so I can say that. No, that's why money shouldn't come into relationships. I don't act that way.
You do.
I do not.
You ask
Don't
me
do
for little
that.
trivial shit. And
I
be
do
like,
not.
go upstairs and get my soda off the table because I pay you to cut videos. Hurry up because we could be done. Go ahead. Come on.
It's not that bad. I swear to God, it's not that bad. No, what happens is I pay her a
What
pretty
happened
decent
was,
sum to cut
no,
videos.
we don't need the whole meaning.
And when I
just
do that,
the video so I
oftentimes-
can finish.
Let's say she only works like 50% of the time. And so I might say,
It's not
hey,
even 50%.
can you save the 50% and let's transfer
And go get my
that
soda?
into fixing me a sandwich. Give me a soda. Or do like, go get me the fiber t-shirt thing, like to handle that. Because sometimes it's stuff of like, I need, like for maximum justice, give me a t-shirt for that. It's stuff, but it's, you know, it's like, you know, I pay you a pretty decent amount for very little. So it works. All right, let's be quick.
Now, wait, to be honest, I used to do a lot and get paid nothing and not as
Flip.
much.
Yeah, it flipped. All right, we're going to be quick. Motherfucker.
Somebody said free Aisha. What is happening?
It starts fucking up.
senseless violence of looting and burning and destruction of property. I want to make it absolutely clear, something very clear about all of this. Rioting is not protesting. Looting is not protesting. Setting fires is not protesting. None of this is protesting. It's lawlessness, plain and simple. And those who do it should be prosecuted. Violence will not bring change. It will only bring destruction.
I hate to tell him this. America was founded on violence. Either in the American Revolution, either in destruction of the Native Americans, either in the freeing of the slaves, meaning the Civil War. Violence is intrinsic to the creation of societies. It's a secondary question of whether violence is the best way to go about some kind of societal change. The problem with this speech is that I would have loved Joe Biden to hit the nail on the head in regards to poverty first, as primary, and talk about it from that angle, and move from that angle to the destruction of property being counterproductive and being, if he wants to say it, wrong. That gives a larger context to it, and that gets people, especially African Americans, who hear that, this contextual understanding of history. And I honest to God believe if Sanders was right here, right now, in this position, that's how he would have handled it. He would have given this kind of, this is what happened back in the X number of days. This is what we expect from this type of poverty and destitution that we allow. He might have even given stats in regards to what people were living through during that phase. And then he would have went to the other side and say, as indiscriminate as it was on them, it's indiscriminate on this other group. And this is wrong. Like, you have to say this is wrong from a societal standpoint. But he would have probably said this is wrong. I'm just saying there's a difference in having the conversation well-rounded and getting into the why the people would act in a certain way. And then showing the behavior itself in a context. Yeah, Biden did a nice people on both sides type of argument. And he was forced to come out here and say it, basically. And so he came out here and said it after he was forced. That's basically what this is. I'm done. Any more super chats?
Here's one more super chat. The person's name is question mark. Thank you for the super chat. It said, what is up with Shane and his inability to understand capitalism? Oh, crap. And shit, I lost it.
Well,
what's up with Shane and his inability to understand capitalism and his weirdness about being not ideological which
There's
not
no
a
such thing. Yeah, it doesn't exist. Shane is young. He's growing. And he is growing in his own political ideology of things. And I think, in some part, the show's called Fault Lines. I think he's probably a lefty at heart. And I don't mean that in a political sense. I just mean that in a God-given sense of introspection, philosophical responsibility from this person's self in the world, those type of things. And he's intersecting that. By definition, all of us do. With all of these other ideas of capitalism, socialism, of politics, of what the politicians are doing, why they're, all of that stuff is going on in an appraisal in his head. When I was 30 or when I was 27, I had no idea of that stuff. So he's like 27, 28. And the fact that he's in that mindset in and of itself is phenomenal. And so he's growing and learning, and he has enough degree of introspection where as he deals with it, he tries to deal with it honestly. So that's all I need. And so him and I may have a back and forth on it. And while I may disagree with how he takes it and the angle that he takes it sometimes, I don't necessarily think he blows off the opinion, which is good for on both sides, because otherwise you can even have a show like Fault Lines. So yeah, I think, he's a good guest. He's a good host. I love him. Love to have him on the show. So far, so good. I have no complaints.
Timothy Dannenhofer, thank you for the super chat. Timothy says, Jamal, love you. Jimmy, Kyle, Michael Brooks, the most. I hope your health improves.
I'm sad
buddy.
Michael Brooks died.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sad Michael Brooks died. I'm 43, and I've had a hellish life. And when I see people die ahead of me that were much healthier and all, I have this kind of grim satisfaction of, if a bet was made on who would still be here, they would have lost that bet. It's so random at times, where it feels like I have family members, football players, best of health, Herculean, like from the standpoint of their physiques and everything else, died in a boating accident. It was famous boating accident, actually. One person came back. Sometimes it's random. I always tell people live their life. When people are ill, oftentimes they have this thought that they can't do X or they can't do Y. You would meet these people, and they would say, "Oh man, I just can't travel again." It's like, why not? I said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I went around the world twice. Once in a helter-skelter, ass on fire way I wasn't doing treatments, and I went for like months without doing treatments. And the other way with a more logical path, even though it was still difficult, with my wife traveling from country to country to country. I think the longest time I went was maybe 7 or 8 days without treatments. And even that gets sketchy and you feel crappy for it. But that's something that you decide to trade more than cash for the experience. Meaning, if you tell me that I can't do this experience without feeling crappy sometimes, then I have to take the trip and feel crappy, or just not take the trip at all and accept feeling perfect all the time. In my head, it is worth feeling crappy every so often, even to some degree to the brink of potentially death if you screw up in your appraisal of it. But it is worth experiencing those things if I have to feel crappy to do it. In the same way that a person spends cash and say, I'm willing to spend $500 for this trip. I'm willing to spend this much pain for this experience. It's no difference. It's you testing your tolerances. But I tell people to live your life. And I tell them to do that because it's random at times. It's not like, I don't know if there's anybody here but myself. That's the first point. On top of that, I don't know if I'm going to get out here, get hit by a piece of metal flying from an asteroid that just so happened, or flying from a piece of metal that just so happened came from a satellite that descended in space. Like getting beamed by it, taken out instantly. It's possible. There's an infinitesimal possibility, but the possibility exists even if it's infinitesimal. Or getting hit by a bus or car or whatever. Like, you don't know. Your heart can stop on an instant. Imagination can get you a long ways. And your body just needs to be up to the task that the imagination demands. You'll be surprised what you can do, despite having a fragile, feeble body in the mix. But no, man, it was sad that they passed. So I appreciate your good words. We done? You were holding me here.
I fucking hope so.
You were holding me here.
Not that I don't love being here with you guys, but there's things that needs to be done for the rest of the day.
I'm going to say like, share, and subscribe. Thanks, everyone.